Hello, and welcome to this brief video on applying orthographic knowledge to word-level reading and spelling. In this video, we'll go over what orthography is and where it can be found in the Ontario curriculum. We'll touch on best practices for teaching and assessing students' orthographic knowledge. Let's get started with some basic information on orthographic knowledge. A language's orthography is its writing system, a standardized system of how oral language is represented in print. Orthographic knowledge includes understanding the writing system of English. It's important to note that the English orthography is opaque. You may also hear that English has a deep orthography. Both of these terms refer to the fact that it is not necessarily a one-to-one relationship between a letter and a sound, or a phoneme and a grapheme. Languages with more transparent orthographies, like Italian or Spanish, mean it is easier to pronounce words when looking at their written form, since there is a very consistent relationship between print and speech. English is less consistent. Some sounds can be represented by multiple spellings. For example, the words take, play, freight, and table all have different spellings of the A sound. Similarly, some spellings can represent multiple sounds. Think of the word snowplow. There are two OW graphemes in that word, but each represents a different sound: snow, plow, O and ow. That being said, it's important to note that there is a structure and order behind these relationships, particularly when the position of a sound in a word is considered. The English language system has a clear structure. Students need to be taught these patterns in language to help them understand the nature of the spelling system to help them read and write. Understanding how the English language is structured is important so students do not have to memorize individual words by rote. Instead, they can understand the nature of the layers of language that influence why words are spelled the way they are. This supports both word reading and spelling. Though many believe that English is very irregular, it's actually much more regular than we might believe. Paul Hanna and his colleagues analyzed high-frequency words and found that 50% of English words are fully regular. 36% are regular with the exception of one grapheme-phoneme correspondence. And 10% of words are regular if we consider morphology and etymology. So taking these together and doing some math, this means that approximately 4% of English words are truly irregular, which points to the importance of having a deep understanding of how our language works and the structure that supports its representation in print. Now we'll focus on how the application of orthographic knowledge is situated in the language curriculum. Grades 1, 2, and 3 have specific expectations for the application of orthographic knowledge to word-level reading and spelling. Across these grades, students use orthographic knowledge, including position-based tendencies, to make a spelling choice or accurately pronounce a word when reading. The Language Foundations Continuum provides an elaboration of the learning associated with these specific expectations. In the continuum, there are specific orthographic patterns and tendencies that students learn. For example, in grade 1, students learn the pattern governing when to spell words with a CH or a TCH when spelling the ch sound. This increases in complexity as students progress with their orthographic knowledge. How can we best teach students to know and understand English orthography and use it when they're reading and spelling words? When we teach students about orthographic patterns and tendencies, it's important that the instruction is systematic and explicit. Systematic instruction means that skills are carefully sequenced from simple to complex. For example, we would first teach students highly regular, predictable patterns, like deciding whether to use a CH or a TCH in spelling when spelling the ch sound. We spell the ch sound with a TCH at the end of a word or syllable when the sound comes immediately after a short vowel, like in the word sketch. This is a predictable and regular tendency and is much simpler for developing readers and writers to learn than, for example, lower frequency spellings or tendencies that might not be as predictable. When considering explicit instruction, it's essential to examine both the design and the delivery of the teaching. We need to carefully plan these elements to ensure optimal student learning. When designing explicit instruction, our focus should be on prioritizing critical content, breaking it down into smaller subskills and maximizing on-task academic learning time. As for the delivery of explicit instruction, it becomes so important to employ concise language, use examples and non-examples, encourage frequent responses from students, including choral responses, and provide lots of opportunity for practice. Broadly speaking, we want to be clear and direct in explaining to students that there are patterns in English spelling, and this supports us to understand why words are spelled the way they are. For teaching an orthographic tendency or pattern, we would want to clearly communicate the learning goals to students. We'd explain the pattern in student-friendly language. Orthographic tendencies are sometimes taught with word sorts, for example, sorting CH words from TCH words, but this might not be fully explicit enough. We can't afford to leave anything to chance. Instruction should be clear, direct, and unambiguous, and we should offer students plenty of examples and non-examples to deepen their understanding of the target skill. Next, we'll explore how to use assessment to support instruction in orthography. A variety of sources of insight into students' application of orthographic knowledge, including early reading screening, diagnostic assessment, and progress monitoring, can be used as assessment for learning to drive evidence-based, explicit, and systematic instruction. In reading, students' knowledge, understanding, and application of orthographic patterns can be captured generally in oral reading fluency screeners. Decoding diagnostics can be used to dive deeper into the specific orthographic patterns students have learned, as well as opportunities for further growth and instruction. In writing, consider using a spelling inventory for assessment for learning. These tools can typically be administered to the whole class with a list of words. Student spelling is scored with a score sheet that allows for a close examination of their understanding of sounds, spelling patterns, and morphology. To sum up, though the English orthography is complex, there is a predictable, consistent structure to it. Knowing and understanding this structure is key for students to develop proficiency in reading and writing. Thanks for listening and for continuing to build your understanding to meet the needs of your students.